Hello, and welcome to this session on the Web of Science database. I'm Ken Frankel, one of the Instruction and Engagement librarians at the Boca Raton FAU campus. And the Web of Science, when we hear the name of it, sounds as if it's a science database. However, the Web of Science, besides including the Science Citation Index, also includes the Social Science Citation Index and the Arts of Humanities Citation Index. So it does cover a wide range of disciplines. One of the unique things about the Web of Science, we can use it to search for articles on a subject like many other databases. However, it also has some unique features such as cited reference searching. So when we search for a subject, we can find the articles that have been cited the most by other authors, and that gives us kind of an indication of which are the most influential articles on a particular subject. This also makes it of interest to faculty members who might be going up for tenure and or promotion, because they can also document the influence that their work has had in their particular field. So what we're seeing right now is the library's webpage. Of course, it is library.fau.edu. And anytime we're going to access a database from off campus, the first thing we'll always want to do is go to this off-campus connect icon, and we can click on the key here. And we have two options to sign in. We can use the number from our OWL card and month and date of our birthday, or the more easy one is to use our FAUNet ID and password. And I'll do that now because I'm working from off campus during the COVID-19 crisis of summer 2020. So if you haven't done this before, the reason we need to do this is that the various databases, e-journals, e-books, streaming video, and other resources we're getting through the library's website are not information that's being given away for free on the internet. It's information that we pay licensing fees to allow you to access. So when you log into this off-campus connect link, it makes it seem like your device, no matter where you're located, is on the FAU campus, and the different vendors we license the information from will recognize that you're affiliated with FAU. Another way to know that you've logged in is if you look at the URL up at the top, we now see the word easy proxy is included in the URL. So that's a quick way of knowing that we have logged in successfully and can now access the information without any problem. So the Web of Science, as I had mentioned at the beginning, is a database. So in order to get to it, we want to select this database tab, which is right above the one search box. Now it turns it to library database search. So we can type Web of Science in here, or we can also go to browse databases by title, where we'll see an A to Z listing of our various databases. And then we can just click on W for Web of Science and scroll down. And you'll see, as I mentioned, this does contain 3 unique citation databases which allow searching cited references as well as traditional searches, independently or in common. And I'm going to click on that, and this should now take us into the Web of Science. So taking a quick look at the interface of the Web of Science, you'll notice that there's an option here that says select a database. The Web of Science core collection is the one that we do want to search, but just to let you know, there are some other options available here, which include some databases of Korean journals, Russian science journals, and Cielo, which are journals mostly from Latin America, as well as Portugal, Spain, and South Africa. Medline is also here as well. Now, Medline is commonly available in the interface called PubMed, but you can get the same database here and use some of that, some of the features of this interface that you might not get in PubMed. But for today's session, we're going to be focusing on the Web of Science core collection. You'll notice as well that we have a basic search, which is what we'll begin with today, as well as an author search, a cited reference search, and an advanced search. Below that basic search box, we see a time span box. So here we can choose if we want all years. So this goes back to the year 1900, the data that we can get from this core collection. But depending on our subject, we might want something much more recent, such as the past year, the past 5 years, and so forth. Or we can select a custom year range. So I'm going to begin by looking for a topic, and you can see here that also this box is set for topic. What else can we search for using this basic search? We can search for a title or words from the title of an article. We can search for an author's name, the name of a particular publication, as well as a variety of other things. But we'll search for a topic now to begin with. So let's say I'm interested in finding information about the bleaching of coral. So I will enter in coral bleaching as my keywords, and I will select search. And so here we can see that we found 2,913 results. And as we scroll down the list, we see different options that we can use to refine these results if we want to, which include the publication years, different categories, different types of documents. So we can see that out of the 2,913 items, most of them are articles. So this would be journal articles. There are some things in here as well, such as proceedings papers, which are papers presented at a conference, as well as editorial material, reviews, and other kinds of information. Further down, we also see the organizations that produce this research as well. And this is kind of telling us which institutions have done the most research in this area. And you'll notice that the top 3 here are all Australian institutions. And of course, they have the Great Barrier Reef there. So this may be where they're doing the most research on this subject. Now, also, another interesting thing that we see in the Web of Science that we don't find in other databases are the funding agencies. And so here we can also see that the authors of these studies list where they got their grant funding from. And this is going to tell us which grant funders are providing the most grants to study this particular area. There are other options as well. We can see what author has done the most research in this area. And we can select any one of these that have a box for a checkbox to just limit our results to those particular fields. You'll notice that as we look at the list of citations on the page, that they are being sorted by date. So we're getting the most recent ones coming up first. So here we're seeing one that's actually from September 2020, which hasn't come yet, but maybe an early listing or pre-publication. But then now we're getting into June 2020, so it's quite up to date. But there are some other ways that we can sort our search results also. And this is one of the unique and valuable things about the Web of Science. So here, if we went into time cited, this is going to resort these results. And you'll notice over on the right side, next to each item, it says the number of times that item has been cited. And some of these have been cited more than 1,000 times, even more than 2,000 times. So these would be the most influential articles on this particular subject. When we sorted by date, and these new ones come up first, you'll notice that they have time cited 0. Now that doesn't mean that they're bad articles. It just means that they're new and they haven't had time to be absorbed by the scholarly community yet, or other authors have not yet had time to cite their article in their research. So again, these are just the newest, and although they haven't been cited much, it isn't really a reflection on their quality. It's just that they're new and haven't necessarily had time to have been cited by other authors at this point. So what we're seeing on the screen here on this list is a citation. So it's giving us the title of an article, the author's names, and the name of the journal. And we see journals like one called Coral Reefs, Ecological Engineering, Marine Environmental Science, and so forth. So one thing we can do is if we click on the title of a particular item, we'll get more information. So here we're going to get the abstract, which is giving us basically a one-paragraph summary of the entire article, which we can then read and decide, well, do I want to find this entire article or not? And again, we just said this has not yet been cited. The Web of Science also includes the articles that these authors have cited while writing their articles. So this is sort of why we call this the Web of Science, because, or web in general, because it's looking both at the research that this article has been built upon, which are the cited references for this article, but then also after it's been around for a while, we can also use the Web of Science to see who else has cited this article. And it'll also tell us, let's go back and resort and bring up the results by the number of times cited, because what we can do then is, besides, let's find one with times cited. There we go. So now it's resorting them by the number of times these articles have been cited. And there's a lot of results. But if we went into one of these, you'll notice where it says time cited, we can click on that. These would be the articles that cited that one. And so if I was one of the authors of this article, this is going to tell me who has cited my article. And so as a faculty member, if I'm going up for promotion or tenure, I can give evidence of the influence that my research has had on others. Another thing we should talk about is getting the actual article, because unlike many other databases, the Web of Science does not include the full text of databases as part of the Web of Science database. However, it does allow you to link to articles, and you'll notice that there are some icons. One says free published article from publisher or from repository, and those are links that we can click on to get to those articles. And the free text from the publisher, these are typically what we would call open access sorts of articles that are available without charge. However, there are many other ones that have this Find It at FAU button. And when we click on the Find It at FAU button, what that's going to do is look at the different databases that FAU subscribes to see if this article is available in any one of those. And so with this one, from the journal Ecology Letters, it's telling us here that we can find this article in full text from Wiley. And when we click on something like that, sometimes we find it'll take us right to the article. Other times it might take us to a page for the particular journal, but not right to the article. So let's try this one and see what happens. If it takes us right to the article, we've got the article and there's no problem. If it takes us to a page for the journal, we can then either go into the table of contents for that particular year, or there'll often be a search engine for the journal and we can copy and paste the title and find the article that way. So let's see what happens in this case. So we're going to click on that, find the article in Wiley, and it should now take us into the Wiley database. It might take a minute to load, and we can see if it takes us right to the article. Okay, so in this case, it's telling us that this particular site is currently unavailable, and we will have to try a different article for an example of this. So for whatever reason, this one's not coming up right now. Let's try a different one, and hopefully we can show how this works. So we'll close that, and we will close this tab to get back to the search results. So let's see if we can find another article that isn't from Wiley. So here's one from Science, which is not a Wiley journal. And we'll see what happens here. So here it's saying we can find this article in full text from JSTOR. Let's try that one. Okay, so you notice now we've gone into JSTOR. So in this case, it did work. For whatever reason, Wiley at this time was having a problem. But you can see here that we did go into the other database, JSTOR, and we're able to access this article. This is sort of a reader that we can view the article in. And there's normally also an option here where we can also download the PDF. And so we would accept that, and then it will take us to the PDF of this article. And so that's just kind of a cover page. And then here's the actual PDF of the article. So that is how we can access the full text of the articles through the Web of Science. So let's close some of these tabs. And back to the Web of Science. So again, another way we could narrow our search down is we can limit our search by years, which we saw earlier. So we could go back to our search screen and choose maybe a particular date range. If we only wanted things for maybe the past couple of years, we can also select these years from here. So let's say I don't want to go back more than about 5 years. I would select those and click on Refine. And so out of the 2,913 articles that we found, about 1,000 of those were from the past 5 years. So a lot of the research is being done recently within the past 5 years. So these, again, are some of the options that we can use to narrow our search down. We could, if we wanted to focus on a particular area, we saw a lot of the research was being done in Australia. Here, let's say we wanted something more closer to home. We could maybe select Florida here, or perhaps the Caribbean. And this would then take this 1,000 and find any that included this word. So out of the 1,000 there, we cut it down to 96. So, and again, these would be from the past 5 years. So by adding additional criteria, we can narrow our search down. And of course, if you were a biologist and interested in, say, a particular species of coral or something like that, you can also put that in and narrow the search even more. So again, these are some of the options. There's also, besides time cited, there's something called the usage count as well. And this would tell us here how many times this particular article has been used since 2013, and then in the past 180 days. There are some other options as well. We can find the ones that were most recently added. And then we can also sort the items by the name of the author, the title of the source, which again is mostly going to be journals. There's also some conferences in here as well. So another thing that we can do, let's go back to the larger set of results. So here I'll go back. A little bit further to where we had about 1,000 results, 1,062. Because what I want to show you here is something else that's neat, which is called Analyze the Results. So when we click on Analyze the Results, it's going to take those 1,000 articles and create a map. And this is a map by subject, so we can see where, in what subject areas are they studying this coral bleaching topics, again, in the past 5 years. So marine and freshwater biology comes up the highest. And then we see things like environmental sciences, ecology, multidisciplinary sciences, and then things like oceanography and various other aspects of biology. So that is kind of a neat thing that will allow us to see kind of a subject breakdown. These kinds of charts can also be downloaded if you wanted to use them for another purpose. And then over on the side here, we mentioned some of these things earlier. We can see which organizations are doing the most research on this particular topic. And again, we see these Australian institutions come in first and second, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the United States comes up, and then University of Hawaii and State University System of Florida. And so we can see that a lot of the research is being done in areas where there actually are coral reefs, which makes sense because the scientists at those schools can have a easier time getting to the reefs and studying them versus someone who's way inland. Another interesting feature is the funding agencies, which we had also mentioned, but we can again see who's doing the most funding, the most grant funding for this particular subject. And also, you notice here that we can click on View Records, and that'll tell us which studies were funded by that particular organization. And again, there are many other ways that we can narrow the search down as well. We won't go into all of those today. Let's go back to the main web page for Web of Science. I wanted to mention a few other things that we can do here. So we did a basic search here. We also mentioned the cited reference search. So when we do the cited reference search, it's going to look at those articles again. No, excuse me. What we wanted to do here, bear with me for a moment when we get back to that main screen. The cited reference search is not what I want to do yet. I wanted to go to search and just show you that, again, by time cited, we can then sort the results by the number of times the item has been cited. The cited reference search is a little different, but what this one will do is it will let us look at a particular author and it will give us a listing of their publications and how many times each one of those has been cited. So I mentioned earlier that for faculty members, something like this can be very useful for someone who is going up for promotion or tenure or that kind of thing. So I'll choose an author from FAU who publishes a lot. So this is a professor in mechanical engineering whose name is Isaac Olishikoff. And we're going to search for his name. Now, when we search for the name of an author, we tend to use their initial and then put an asterisk. The asterisk would bring up anything where they spelled out his first name or use the initials or so forth. So now when we click on search, this is going to bring up the articles that he has been an author or co-author of. And we can see that he has been listed over 900 times in this database. And it's listing each one of the articles that he, again, is an author or co-author of. And you'll notice these have other people's names listed first. So those are what we call the lead author, but he's one of the authors of these. And then it's giving us the citation to the article. And to the right, it's telling us, again, how many times has that article been cited. And as we scroll down the list, sometimes we'll notice that an article might be listed more than once. And because what we're seeing here is that in the cited reference search, this is actually looking at the citations that are coming from different journal articles. And sometimes there's variations in the ways that the authors have cited that original article. So we may see some of them appear more than once. But over to the right in this column, it says we can view all articles that cite this one. And by clicking on that, it would then take us to a listing of the articles that cited that particular author. And as a faculty member going up for promotion or tenure, or maybe a graduate student who is seeking to do an internship, or if they were a master's level student seeking to go into a doctoral program, if they've been cited in a research study, they can see what other authors have cited. And so when they apply for something like that, this can also help them. So a couple of other things to mention about the Web of Science. When I did my search to begin with, I did just enter the search. However, I did mention at the beginning that there are various subsets within the Web of Science. So when I did that search to begin with, I was kind of searching for everything, but most of my results looked relevant. However, I can choose to be more focused. By the way, we notice that we see science, social sciences, and arts and humanities, as I had mentioned earlier. There's also called the Emerging Sources Citation Index. And what that means is that in these three, these are looking at well-established journals that have met certain criteria for quality to be included within this database. There are new journals that are coming out all the time as well. And so with the the Web of Science, they've put these new journals that seem promising, but have maybe only been around a year or two and are not that well established into another category called the Emerging Sources Citation Index, which you can choose to search or not. Again, there are what are called predatory journals that will accept manuscripts from researchers and then charge them money, but they are not really good peer-reviewed journals, and sometimes rip people off as well. So here in the Web of Science, they're trying to eliminate those. So We wouldn't probably see something like that in this emerging sources citation index. It just might be a new journal by a reputable publisher or scholarly society or that kind of thing. But here, I just wanted to show you that we can use the Web of Science to search for other subject areas. So here, maybe I'm going to look for information about homeless veterans. And I think social sciences would probably be the best place to look for that. You could do the other ones as well and compare, but here when we look at social sciences, we did see that we found 556 articles that mentioned homeless veterans, mentioned those keywords in some context. And we can see that there are different journals coming up versus the core ones, things about psychiatry and alcoholism, women's issues, and so forth. And again, we can again rank these by number of times they've been cited, as well as the date, which again would bring up the newest ones first as well. Health and social care in the community, substance abuse treatment, and so forth. Now, with some subject areas, they might have good information in both science and social sciences, or you might be looking in an area in social sciences and might also seek information in arts and humanities. So you can, on that first search screen, choose any combination of these or all of them. There's also an advanced search screen. And this one is using what are called the Boolean Operators. And so this is a little more complex, and they give you kind of an example of how you can combine these search tags over here on the side, or field tags. And if you just wanted to search for a particular year, journal, and so forth, you can combine these. We won't go into that level of detail today, but I just wanted to let you know that that option is available as well. Finally, I wanted to mention there are some other options that we see up here at the top, and these are other things that generally you would have to subscribe to separately, and FAU does not subscribe to many of these. However, we do get asked a lot about journal citation reports. This provides metrics about journals and the frequency of citation and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, we don't subscribe to that one. We do get asked about it a lot. And hopefully it's something we can get at some point in time, but probably not in the near future. But we hope to get that eventually. Something that you do have access to is EndNote. So EndNote is a program that allows you to save bibliographic citations. There are other things like this, such as Zotero and Bibliophile and RefWorks. And our library had a subscription to RefWorks for many years and still does, but that's going to be ending at the end of this year. So if you are looking to switch over from RefWorks to another one of these programs, you do have access to EndNote through the Web of Science, and you can create an account in here by registering with your FAU email address. It's not giving you the full version of EndNote, however, and it does give you access to a basic version. So many of those I had mentioned, such as Zotero and Bibliophile and so forth, will give you a free version, a free basic version. But this is something that you can use through our Web of Science subscription, so you can get access to EndNote through there. Okay, so excuse me while I close that tab. And again, this is just kind of a basic introduction to the web of science. There's a lot more that we can do. We can search, for example, for an organization. So we can look at our university, for example, and this will be the last thing I talk about today. I do have to spell that correctly. Notice here it says organization enhanced. And here I have checked off social sciences still. So these would be just social sciences related articles from FAU. And again, they're ranking them by date. And we can also rank them by the number of times cited, and all these other features that we've seen as well. And we can see here subjects are coming up like marketing, MIS, cognitive sciences, child development, and many other subject areas. So again, that is just another feature. And there's many more. And it's really, I don't want to go into every single feature of the Web of Science today, but hopefully this will give you enough to get started and explore. Again, the Web of Science, it's not just for science, as you've just seen. There are really a variety of different things you can do with this tool. So if you have any further questions or inquiries about the Web of Science, feel free to contact the library's Instruction and Engagement Department, and we can work with you more on finding the information that you're looking for. So thanks a lot, and good luck to you this semester, and hopefully we'll see you on campus sometime soon. Bye-bye now.